I'm Isabella. I'm from Brisbane, Australia. I'm 23 years old and I work retail, but I do modelling on the side. And I do cosplay. I've been modelling on and off for around 8 years now, mostly TFP stuff, but I have done some paid modelling as well, just working for myself. I personally haven't been with an agency. I was looking into going with an agency, but it's kind of hard for me to find one who will have me as anything but a hair model because of my short hair and tattoos, but maybe I'll find one day. So I first got into modelling when my friend years ago wanted to experiment with photography and she needed a model. So I offered to be a model for her and she took some really nice photos, one of which ended up being plastered on the side of this boutique in Mooloolaba, and it was like a 2 by 1 meter like poster sort of thing on my face there, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it from there. And since then I've had other photographers approach me about modelling and TFP work, and it's just a lot of fun, and now I've made a lot of friends who are photographers as well. So the type of modelling work I do the most is probably just general like fashion modelling. I've done some lingerie, I've done cosplay obviously, I've done some body art, I've done art nude. My favourite is probably just like fashion or like concept shoots where I get to just kind of wear all the kind of cool fashion that I'm into and things like that, be a bit creative and have a lot of fun. My main tips for models wanting to start their careers is probably to get with an agency. Most of the more successful models I've seen have been with an agency just because it's easier to get like a lot of commercial work and things like that. If you're just looking to do it for fun, then you can definitely just do it yourself. You don't need to be with an agency. But you will get like a lot of TFP work and not so much paid work, I do find. So being with an agency is probably the first step to being a more professional model. I think it's important as a model to perhaps not only get some training, but maybe just be around other models so you can kind of understand more how to work your body, certain angles that suit with the camera. Even just practicing like in a mirror, things like that can help you. Because when you do go do like your first photo shoot, it's always hard if you don't really know what you look like. You're just kind of trying. So definitely practice is good for models who want to get into more professional shoots and things like that. I didn't have any professional training myself. I did just years of TFP work and basically getting those photos back, seeing what I like, what I didn't like. Sometimes I see a photo of myself and be like, oh, I'm never doing that like pose again. But it's just a lot of practice. I didn't have any professional teachings, but if I did, I probably would have gotten to where I am faster. I think models should definitely look at possibly investing in a more professional photographer, and especially for their portfolio, because your portfolio images are really important, especially if you're going for an agency. So getting paid professional portfolio images and feedback from a professional photographer that works in the industry is really helpful. If you want to stick to TFP, there's no guarantee that who you're going to shoot with is going to be on that professional level. So it's definitely worth paying a photographer for those images. The best way to find a professional photographer for your portfolio is just to do your research. So just look around. There's lots of photography groups on Brisbane. Have a look at people's different portfolios, what you like. Check what your agency needs as well, if they just need headshots and things like that. And ask people for their previous work as well, if they've done any agency sort of portfolio shots. As for what you might like in shoots, that's more personal preference, but what an agency wants might be different to that. So just do a little bit of research, and also asking around other models if they've had any experience with certain photographers, if they recommend anyone, that's also good as well. Depending what you're doing. If you're doing a TFP shoot and you want to make sure you're staying safe, the best thing is to bring a friend along as well. Or definitely do like a lot of research beforehand into the photographer. If you've heard certain things about a photographer from other people and you feel a bit uneasy about it, maybe it's worth not going, or definitely bringing a friend along. That would be my advice for people who feel a bit unsafe going with certain photographers. I personally don't have any horror stories, so I'm very lucky in that aspect. I have been asked certain things, and obviously if I'm not comfortable with it, I'll just kind of brush it off or say no. Besides that, I'm lucky. I haven't experienced that stuff, but I definitely know girls in the industry who have experienced a lot worse than I have, and that was mostly due to the fact that they didn't have anyone else there with them as well, so it makes them a bit more vulnerable in that aspect. So definitely bring someone else along if you're feeling uncomfortable, or do your research into the person, because chances are something else has happened to someone of the same industry but from that person. So yeah, I think there's a fine line between what is kind of creepy with a photographer and what is kind of expected. Like obviously looking at you quite a bit, like they do have to look at you to shoot you and through the camera and that, but any sort of weird pet names or too much touching, I haven't really had that too much myself. But if you do experience that, it's really important to actually say something if it makes you uncomfortable, because it should be like a professional environment regardless of TFP or whether it's paid as well. So if you don't say anything, then I suppose how can they know that they're pushing the boundaries? I shoot in home studios a fair bit, because I think a lot of photographers just find it easier to convert like their garage or whatever into a home studio. It's nice when the home studio is obviously set up for just a studio, so it's like a separate area, it's like a garage, or it's a whole separate sort of workspace. When the home studio is like more in the home, and then like it just doesn't feel as professional, or it's not set up very nicely, there's not like backdrops and things like that. I personally haven't experienced anything weird with like home studios, anything like that. A home studio with a lot of like natural light coming in is good as well, because obviously that allows the photographer to do like natural light shots, as well as if you can close it off, then you can do flash and things like that. But if the environment's too dark, you're not going to get any nice sort of shots or lighting or things like that. So natural light is definitely nice to have in a home studio. If I go to a shoot and it's a closed off sort of home studio space, it's very dark kind of thing, it can be a bit creepy, and it doesn't feel as professional. Definitely a nice sort of open environment where you feel safe if needed, where you can easily get away if needed, is good to have. So especially if you don't know the photographer very well or things like that, you don't want to feel kind of trapped in somewhere. Photographers, how they act on shoots, it definitely impacts how the model feels and how the model reacts to that as well. So if a photographer is nervous or they're kind of like cranky or something like that, you're going to feel uncomfortable, you're going to feel nervous as well. And if they are trying to overpose you too much, you might feel like overworked and tired and just like, you know, you don't want to do like a certain pose or something. That's definitely something that maybe you can kind of express, like, oh, hey, do you think I could take a break for like 5 minutes? Or hey, I can't actually do that pose, can we do something a bit easier? That sort of thing. If it's TFP, like, photographers shouldn't care if you want to do that. But yeah, like the emotions of the photographer definitely reflect onto the model. So especially if it's a model's first time, the photographer wants to be like welcoming and fun and happy, and wants to be like positive and just like helping them feel more comfortable for it being their first time. They want to be helping them pose easier. They want to be helping them feel like, you know, they're doing a really good job even though it's their first time. Just encouraging, really. Photoshop and modeling, I think there's also like a fine line that can be too much, depending on what people like, obviously. But generally, like a bit of skin retouching is nice. I mean, no one wants to get photos back and they've got bad skin everywhere. They want to look great in photos. That's why we like take them, right? But yeah, too much retouching, like changing body shape, things like that, people will take like a lot of offense to that. Which, I mean, they should, but sometimes things have to be changed for the whole aesthetic of the imagery. I personally don't mind if I'm photoshopped a little bit, but that's just me because I'm like insecure. So, but yeah, I know a lot of people that want like a natural sort of photo, so they don't want it retouched too much. I think touching the skin too much to the point where it looks kind of plasticky and fake doesn't look nice anyway. So yeah, I can understand if people get upset about that, which I would be upset about that as well. So. Ah, cool, thanks. Bye.